I talked to a lot of very serious Iran experts, and universally, they believe that Israel will attack Iran again before the 1st of December. I was in the CIA a long time. No matter who was president, literally every single time Netanyahu came to Washington, he'd say, please bomb Iran. And every single president said, we're not going to bomb Iran for you, until this one. We are in an unusually dangerous period right now.
As America or?
The whole world, really.
Got it.
Because there was always this line that American presidents wouldn't allow Netanyahu to cross. But now we have let him cross it. And the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. There's something I learned early on at the agency, is there is never, ever plan to get out. It's easy to go in and just start people and overthrow a government. It is almost impossible to make a clean escape.
Do you feel like we're headed towards like a decline as a country?
Absolutely, yes. China has changed its official policy to just sit back and watch the American government collapse on its own.
I want to know the countries you visited that you shouldn't, like.
I've been to 72 countries.
72 countries?
Yeah. It's the curse of speaking Arabic, my boss said. I'll tell you something. I was in Yemen once. Yemen's a rough gig, right? Been there 5 times. It's worse every time I go. Worse than the previous time. So I come back from Yemen. I land. It was an odd flight. I don't remember where I came from. Maybe it was London or something. And so I arrived in the morning. And I thought, I'm going to go in the office. I'm not going to tell anybody I'm there. I'm just going to do my accounting. And I'm going to go home and sleep. So I go into my office. I didn't say hi to anybody. And my boss sees me. And he's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were back. And I said, no, I'm actually not back. I just want to do my accounting. And I'm going to go home and go to sleep. He goes, okay, can you go to Sudan? And I go, Sudan? When? 3 o'clock? I said, are you kidding me? I just came. I was 1 hour from Sudan. And I go, why? What do you want me to do in Sudan now? He goes, well, we have a walk-in and he's too sensitive and you're the only person who speaks Arabic around here. I was like, damn it. I said, let me go home and take a shower and do a load of laundry. And yes, I'll be on the 3 o'clock flight. And that was normal.
So you'd see your bed, but you wouldn't get a lay in your bed.
You know what I had to do? I had to actually hire a woman, a cleaning lady, not to clean my apartment, because it was always clean, just to go in and flush my toilet once a week, because I was so rarely in my apartment that it would start to smell of sewer gas. And so she would just go once a week and flush my toilet a couple of times, just to keep it not disgusting.
Yeah, open the shower.
Yeah. There was one point where my girlfriend said, why do you have an apartment? Why don't you just get a post office box and then either stay at my place or stay in a hotel? I said, that's actually a good idea. I'm throwing money down the drain because I never, ever sleep in my apartment.
So out of the 72 countries, have you ever visited Iran?
I have been to Iran, not with the CIA. I left the CIA in 2005. So 2004, my resignation was effective 2005. I went to one of the big 4 accounting firms called Deloitte & Touche. Now it's called Deloitte. And I went as the deputy director of the competitive intelligence practice, spying on our competitors and trying to steal their secrets, their corporate secrets. Tons of money. Most boring job I ever had in my life. But I got a call one day from my very first boss at the CIA, who by then was a scholar at Brookings. And he said, hey, I got a strange call from Paramount Studios, and they wanted me to do something. And I said, it wasn't for me, but I've got a friend, and it's definitely for him. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, call this woman over at Paramount Studios in Los Angeles. So I call. She's the VP for legal affairs. So she says, we've gotten ourselves in something of a predicament. She said, we made this movie called The Kite Runner. And I said, oh, I read the book. Khaled Hosseini. I said, it's a masterpiece. And she said, we made a movie based on the book, and it adheres very strictly to the book. But there are two scenes in the movie that are objectionable to Muslims. One of them is one of the 12-year-old boys who was a star is raped by an older boy. And there's a scene where he's limping away from the rape and he's dripping blood behind him. The other scene is a boy that has been sort of taken by the Taliban and he's forced to do this homoerotic dance, which is something, it's part of their culture.
It's called Bachabazi, I think.
Exactly right. And so the problem is many Afghans are so unsophisticated that they don't know the difference between real life and Hollywood make-believe. And so they've begun threatening to kill the boys, the actors. I said, okay. She said, we need somebody to go to Afghanistan and rescue these boys and get them out. I said, I'm your guy. So I flew to Los Angeles. They wanted me first to watch the movie. It hadn't been fully edited yet, but I watched the movie, a masterpiece. And then I met with a whole bunch of studio executives. They gave me an Intelsat satellite phone just in case, the shit hit the fan and I needed a helicopter to come in and rescue me. And they said, take as long as you need. We got to get these boys out. And I said, I'm not going to be able just to get the boys. They're like 15 years old now. It's going to have to be families. They said, yes, families. Just get them to Dubai. I said, I've got a buddy who works with film studios and he does logistics. Mostly if you want to film a movie in Libya or Cuba or whatever, he'll make it happen. I said, if you don't mind engaging him, I can meet him in Dubai once I get the families out. So I called my boss. I said, hey, I want to take some vacation time. Oh, what are you going to do? I said, nothing. I think I'm just going to relax and hang out. Oh, I'm sure I'll find something interesting to do. I fly straight to Afghanistan. And it was hard to get to Afghanistan in 2007, right? It's a country at war. So I had to fly to Delhi and then from Delhi to Islamabad and then Islamabad to Kabul. So I was there for 2 weeks. I found the families. First of all, I hired a security team on my own, which was kind of funny because I hired them from Washington. They said, where are you going to stay? And I said, I'm not sure. I'm trying to find a little guest house. And they said, well, the Intercontinental Hotel is the best hotel in the city. It's not great, but it's the best. And I said, no, look, if all the Westerners are staying at the Intercontinental Hotel, which hotel are they going to blow up? The Intercontinental Hotel. They blew it up while I was there.
Oh my God.
I was on the balcony. I was like, good Lord, what was that? And then the security guy, it was this British security team. Mercenaries is what they were. He's like, stay inside the hotel room, close the curtains. I said, what was that? He said, it was the Intercontinental Hotel. I said, I told you they were going to blow it up. Same thing happened to me in Islamabad. The first night I was there, they put me in the Marriott. I said, are you insane? I'm not staying in the Marriott. They blew it up, killed 45 people.
And you were gone.
I was in a 16-room guest house called the Jacaranda Blossom, where I was perfectly safe. Thank you very much. So anyway, I fly there. I meet up with the security team at the airport, and they had a translator. I go to the school where the kids were attending, and I talked to the headmaster. He introduced me to the kids, and then we went to their house, and I explained I was here from the studio. They're like, oh, thank God. I said, the studio wants you to move to Dubai. They're like, okay, well, we need, it's not just us four. It's, grandma and grandpa and Uncle Muhammad and Uncle Hamza and his wife and his kids. It's like, come on, you guys. Come on. So finally I called Paramount. I was like, look, we're talking about 27 people here. 27 people. Not a one of whom had a passport. So I make an appointment in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm like, listen, I'm an American. I used to work at this place in Virginia. And they're like, okay, what do you need? I said, I need 27 passports and I need them like right now. Oh, I don't think we can do that. And I start, lining up the $100 bills on the desk. And when I got to 10,000, he's like, okay, I think we can do it. So we got passports. Finally, when we got all the passports, I told the Brits, we need a bus. Put everybody on a bus so that we're all together. We're not going to lose a straggler. We all drive to Kabul airport. So we get off. I go to the first desk. There's like an information desk. I said, I need the first flight to Dubai. They said, it's Cam Air. I'm like, what's that? Oh, it's the new Iranian discount airline. I said, oh, shit. Well, the only other flight is through Delhi, and it's, day after tomorrow. I said, no, we can't do that. So I go up to the Cam Air counter. I said, I need 28 one-way tickets to Dubai. And they were like, okay. I paid cash. So they said, here's the itinerary. She lays out the itinerary for me. And I said, why does it take so long? It's not 8 hours to Dubai. It's like 3 hours to Dubai. Oh, no, it lands in Tehran. And I was like, shit. I said, okay, give me 28 one-way tickets.
Did you have your passport with you?
My American passport.
Black or blue?
Oh, I was long past black.
Oh, so you're blue.
I'm just a private citizen. And this is the thing. I'm on the plane and I'm thinking, literally no one on earth knows where I am. I could go missing and no one would have the foggiest idea whatever happened to me. So I said to this woman at the counter, I said, I don't have to get off the plane in Tehran, do I? And she said, no, they're going to refuel and more people are going to get on. That's why they had so many available seats, because most of the passengers were Tehran to Dubai. So we got on the plane, we fly to Iran, and I'm sitting there like a statue, like a nervous wreck, and I'm watching these guys refuel the plane outside. People are getting up and getting off and more getting on, and they're coming on, cleaning and stocking the food and whatever. I didn't say a word to anybody. We sat there for like 3 hours. And then they said, okay, we're ready to go to Dubai. I thought, oh, thank God. So we take off, we land in Dubai, and my buddy's there waiting for us at the airport. And he says, you didn't land in Iran, did you? And I go, yeah, we landed in Iran. So we made it. And then I said, what about things on your end? He said, I got him 3 houses. So it was 3 child actors and all their extended family. We got 3 houses. He says, I got the kids enrolled in a Dari language school. And he said, I got all the dads' jobs. That's when the trouble started. Because one of the dads is like, I'm not going to be a dishwasher in this restaurant. In Kabul, I was the manager of the Mercedes dealership. And I said, bullshit. I said, there is no Mercedes dealership anywhere in Afghanistan. You're full of shit. And I said, you're very ungrateful. And I'm getting tired of it. You want to go back to Kabul and take your chances? Go. Because I'm not going to lose 1 minute of sleep over it. And he's like, all right. I'll wash dishes at the restaurant. And then about, 8-9 months later, Paramount calls again. And they said, can you give an interview to NPR? Because these family members called NPR and said that we tricked them and we kidnapped them and forced them to go to Dubai and they want to go home. I said, absolutely. So I gave an interview to NPR and I gave an interview to the New York Times because I was mad. And the next day, my boss comes into my office and he's holding the New York Times. And he goes, when you went on vacation last summer, you didn't go to Afghanistan, did you? And I go like this. I go, do you really care where I spend my vacation? Do you really care where I choose to go for pleasure? He said, no, I don't. And don't answer the question. And he walked out. So in the end, every one of those 27 went back to Afghanistan. And then the Taliban came back. And I haven't heard anything about any of them.
One important question. How was the food on the flight from Tehran
It
to
was
Dubai?
wonderful, to tell you the honest to God's truth. It was wonderful. Everybody, first of all, those airplanes were spotlessly clean. The food was terrific. There weren't female flight attendants. They were all men. But they were professional and good at what they did. They were efficient. I would fly Cam. It's KAM if you're interested. Cam Air. It's actually very good.
Don't listen to him.
So your
As
passport
CIA.
didn't get stamped then.
Nope. Didn't get stamped.
He needs a visa. You can't just go.
Yeah. No, you can't just arrive and say, "Here I am." People have tried that. It doesn't work out well.
They just
Former CIA?
Yeah. No, it doesn't work.
Not a good idea.
gotcha.
Now, as crazy it sounds, I am a star in Iran. Today is the 20th of September.
Okay.
This evening, I was supposed to have met President Pezeshkian at the United Nations.
Today?
I was invited to a meeting with President Pezeshkian at the United Nations because I've written about Iran and I told a story that I'm happy to tell you guys that the Iranians have latched onto. And now I'm telling you, I'm invited to speak at universities in Iran at least 4 times a year. I've never been. I don't have any plans to go. But it's kind of flattering. I told this story to a podcaster and it got picked up in Iran and it just went like wildfire. So this is the night before we invaded Iraq in 2003. There was what's called a Principals Committee meeting. Now the Principals Committee is chaired by the president and the committee is made up of the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, the director of the CIA. And then there are a couple of hangers-on, like the next 2 people down in the National Security Council, sometimes the head of NSA. And in this case, the commander, at the time he was called SINCCENT, the commander-in-chief of Central Command, General Tommy Franks. So I was George Tenet's note taker. George was the director of the CIA. So the president was, I don't know, busy or distracted. I don't know. So Vice President Cheney chaired the meeting. And so it was Cheney, Condi Rice, Colin Powell, George, Tommy Franks, and then like 4 other lower level people. And then each of them had their own note taker. So I was George's note taker. So we're in the DCI conference room, the Director of Central Intelligence conference room. He's at the head of the conference room table. There's the little microphone in front of him, and all these TV screens are arrayed in front of him. So it's Cheney's there, Condi's there, Colin Powell's there, Rumsfeld's there. Everybody's in place. So Cheney begins by asking General Franks to give the order of battle briefing. I've always, all my career, I've hated order of battle briefings because they are meaningless to me. They have a map and they're like, elements of the 1st Army Corps are located in this position and the 4th Battalion of the 2nd Division are moving east. And I don't care. I don't care where your little men happen to be on the map. Just fight your war and let me do the other stuff. So at the very end of it, Cheney says, General Franks, you're feeling confident? And George is sitting at the table just like this. And Frank says, his exact words, he says, if all goes as planned, we can be in Tehran by August. And George very discreetly turns off his microphone and he turns and he says, did he say Tehran or did he say Baghdad? And I said, he said Tehran. And George says, have they lost their minds? And then he discreetly turns the microphone back on and just does the rest of the meeting. The meeting ends. I go back to the deputy director's office. He said, how'd the principal's briefing go? I said, did you know we were going to invade Iran? And he goes, are they still talking about that? We're not going to invade Iran. He said, these guys don't know anything about the Middle East. I said, seriously, they must know nothing about history. I said, this one idiot from the NSC, I don't want to say his name, he said, as we were closing the meeting, he says, they're going to throw flowers at us when we cross that border tomorrow. And I'm like, no, they're going to shoot us all in the head because we're invading and occupying their country. And he's like, we're not invading Iran. It's a fantasy that these guys have. And sure enough, we got bogged down immediately. As soon as we crossed the border, everybody just opened fire on us.
Oh, you guys attempted?
Well, the U.S. Army crossed the border, 6 a.m.
In Iran?
Iraq.
Oh, Iraq. Yeah. I thought it happened to Iran. I was like,
No. We never
Maybe
got
not.
anywhere near Iran. No way. No way. But these idiots really believed that. I mean, this is right around the time that that General, what was his name? Under Clinton, said that there were these 7 countries. We're going to attack each one and overthrow each government. And he was right. That was the plan. Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Egypt. No.
Oh, but then the Muslim Brotherhood get kicked out of Egypt?
That was later.
Oh,
That was 8 years later. Yeah.
well, what do you think's going to happen with Iran? The bombing that happened with the U.S. bombing the nuclear sites, and then Israel and Iran going back and forth. And there's talks that there's going to be maybe a continuation of that before December of this year.
I talked to a lot of very serious Iran experts, scholars in Washington. As recently as yesterday, I talked to Trita Parsi, who's probably the most important Iran scholar in America. And universally, they believe that Israel will attack Iran again before the 1st of December. Yes.
I mean, they kind of have to, if you look at the opportunity that they have to do so, because you have an administration that will kind of look the other way and has given Israel the opportunity
Yes.
to do so.
Yes.
So if the administration changes or the midterm elections change, that window's gone.
It's got to happen now.
It's got to happen fast. And
Which
also,
is a shame. Oh, it's a shame because I'll tell you, the JCPOA, whether the Republicans liked it or not, was actually working. It was exactly the same inspection regime that we had with the Iraqis from UN Security Council Resolution 986 and 1060, right? Inspectors were able to go in unannounced. There were lead seals on every site. There were cameras everywhere that were doing live feeds back to the United Nations in Vienna. It was actually working, but Donald Trump pulled us out. And then the Iranians started enriching uranium, not to weapons grade, but enriching it to a higher level than it had been enriched. And then the Israelis said, oh my God, they're going to build a bomb, despite the fact that the CIA had published 3 separate national intelligence estimates saying that the Iranians are not building a bomb. They're enriching slightly, so they're keeping their options open, but they're not building a bomb. And then Netanyahu said, and this is another thing, Netanyahu, I was in the CIA a long time. No matter who was president, literally every single time Netanyahu came to Washington, he'd say, please bomb Iran, please bomb Iran, please bomb Iran. And every single president said, we're not going to bomb Iran for you until this one.
John, what was the idea though? Bomb Iran and then what?
See, but
Regime change?
that's
What was the
thing.
plan?
The eventual goal, of course, is regime change.
But that's very difficult with that country because it's not.
Ordinarily difficult.
Yeah, it's not one person. It's
Exactly.
embedded in the entire.
I mentioned to you offline that as much as I hate and disagree with everything that Hillary Clinton stands for and has said, she did say one thing about Iran that she was exactly right about. She said Iran is actually not a theocracy. Iran is a military dictatorship. It's not run by the Ayatollahs. It's run by the IRGC, and that makes it more dangerous.
Doesn't the Ayatollah control the IRGC?
Technically, but on a day-to-day basis, not really. No, not anymore. Ayatollah Khomeini, 100%. Absolutely,
Or
yes.
Khamenei?
No,
'Cause Khomeini died.
under Khomeini,
Oh, yeah.
yes, he absolutely did. Under Khamenei, not really. It's really not in his bailiwick.
Mm-hmm. So if Israel were to attack, what do you think their game plan is? I mean, it would have to be through ground forces, mainly, because that's what...
Which would be impossible. Country's too big, too many people, too mountainous.
Well, no, I didn't mean,
invade.
yeah, I agree with you. I don't think ground force as in troops going in, but I think indirectly, covertly, maybe going into the country, or Mossad's already
They're already
in the
there.
country. Yeah.
They're already there picking off nuclear scientists and generals all over the country. And the Israelis have been very, very successful in recruiting Afghan illegal aliens.
Which all the Afghans got deported after this war, right?
Boy,
It was like,
did they. Like with lightning speed,
yeah,
too.
they rounded up all the Afghans in the country and just deported. I think it was like one week. It was
Yeah,
like 500.
thousands of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, in 1 week, everybody's expelled.
yeah, just complete. Whether you're
Because there is no refugee program in Iran. So these people are literally starving. They're on the street corners begging for food, begging for clothing. And then the Israelis say, hey, we'll give you $50 if you tell us where the general lives. And they're like, yeah, he lives right there. Here's $50. Oh, that's a good investment if you're Israel.
yeah, I mean that's great intel.
Mhm.
For pennies
Sure
on
is.
the dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think what's gonna happen there if Israel attacks?
I think we are in an unusually dangerous period right now.
As America or
The whole world, really.
got it.
Because, you know, there was always this line that American presidents wouldn't allow Netanyahu to cross. But now we have let him cross it. And the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. And so what does it mean? We bombed Iran on behalf of the Israelis because we had these bunker buster bombs, the 30,000 Moabs, right? Mother of all bombs. And at least that's what we called them at the agency. And the Israelis have concluded that, no, that's not good enough. We didn't destroy all the underground facilities. They were deeper than we thought they were. And so we have to use more or bigger or nuclear. And we can't just keep doing these pinpricks. We have to overthrow the entire government. You can't overthrow the entire government. It's decentralized. It's just simply not possible. And see, this is a beef I had with American war planners too. This is something I learned early on at the agency, is there is never, ever a plan to get out, right? It's easy to go in and just start killing people and overthrow a government. It is almost impossible to make a clean escape. And then what do? Then you're in Iraq for 20 years, and you're in Afghanistan for 20 years, and you have 10,000 people dead. And then what do? You've killed 2 million people over there.
Iran's a little different because you got 90 million population.
Right. It's huge.
You have the terrain. The education level is different than Afghanistan.
That's right.
Iraq.
That's right. It's a sophisticated society. They're highly educated and they're patriotic. Even if they don't like the Ayatollahs, they love their country. Nobody wants to be invaded and occupied by a foreign power.
Iranians are very pro-America.
Yeah,
the actual
they
people
actually
are very pro-America.
Yeah.
But
They actually are.
but to your point, if they get attacked, then they have no choice but
Right,
to
they have to fight.
run. Yeah.
Plus, you know, one of the things that we as a country seem to not take into consideration is, what are the reactions going to be from Russia and China? They're not just going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs and watch us invade, you know, Iran.
Well, Russia's kind of
anymore.
bogged down with Ukraine, and I think
But
China.
But they're winning. And the Russians have not gone so far as to say that Iran falls under their nuclear umbrella. They could.
Yeah.
They haven't yet. But they're actually winning in Ukraine. If they wanted to divert troops to protect the Iranians, that would only take a week or two.
But hasn't history shown that when a country fights at two borders or two different wars, they fall?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if they wanted to just declare victory in Ukraine and go home,
Oh,
they
just
could,
do a blitz.
they could just do that right now. Yeah. Because what do the Russians want in Ukraine? They want Donetsk and Luhansk,
which they have.
which they have. They want the Crimea, which they
Which they
also
have.
have.
Yeah.
And the rest is gravy.
I would think if that were to happen, that scenario were to happen, then China would just go after Taiwan and just take Taiwan because they would know.
See, and I don't. I'm probably in the minority on that, but the Chinese actually don't have a history of imperialism. They fought a little border skirmish with North Vietnam in the 70s. They've fought 2 little skirmishes with India over the years, most recently a year ago. Just little, you know, shots across the border. Tibet, of course, they invaded and occupied. That's different. The Chinese have one foreign military base, and as nuts as it sounds, they share it with us. It's in Djibouti. I've been there. Camp Lemonnier, when the...
Where haven't you?
I know. When the French pulled out, they just abandoned Camp Lemonnier, and the Djiboutians asked us, "You want this?" And we said, "Yeah, it's 16 miles from Yemen. Sure, we'll take it." And then the Chinese is like, "Yeah, we'll take some too." So there's literally a chain link fence. They're right down the middle. And on the right side is the Americans, and on the left side is the Chinese. That's the only Chinese military base in the world outside of China. So it's not like they're imperialists. And the Chinese, you know, we're really the ones who lead the charge, saying that the Chinese are always on the brink of invading Taiwan. Even the Taiwan government doesn't believe that's the case.
Well, I mean, China doesn't recognize Taiwan. They're all Chinese.
No, they're all Chinese.
They're all Chinese citizens.
And
they all have Chinese
eventually
passports.
they'll be reunited.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Chinese have never said reunited by force. We say it.
I see.
Yeah.
That's the big difference.
Yeah. And then, you know, we send the 7th Fleet to the South China Sea. They're like, the Chinese are in the South China Sea. Yeah.
Because we're there.
Yeah. It's the South China Sea. What would our reaction be if the Chinese brought an aircraft carrier to the Caribbean? We'd lose our minds. So I'm not worried about the Chinese as an offensive force. You know, there was a cartoon in The Onion this week that made me laugh out loud. Um, it was a bunch of Chinese guys, and they were sitting like this, and it said, China has changed its official policy to just sit back and watch the American government collapse on its own.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like we're headed towards like a decline as a country?
Absolutely, yes.
You know,
How long?
yeah, we've
Yeah.
spoken to other CIA officers. They all feel the same way. They feel like they want to move out of the country or live in another country.
I have a Greek passport in my bag right there.
Ready to go.
I'm ready to go, and I'm going to buy real estate there early next year.
Really?
And all 5 of my kids got Greek citizenship.
I know Andrew Bustamante
Yeah,
is
he and I
is the
talked
same
about
thing.
it. Yeah,
What's his plan? What has he told you?
his plan was to leave like sooner.
Yeah, he said by 26, like
Yeah.
March of 26, he's planning
Right.
on moving. I think he's going to go to Portugal. He's
That's
talking about.
That's what he told me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oops. He's not moving to Portugal. He's moving to Brazil.
Okay.
Wink, wink.
When do you think it'll start the uptick again here?
Well, our problem is our defense budget. We spend more than $1 trillion a year on defense, and our roads are for shit, and our bridges are falling into the rivers below them, and we should be ashamed of the state of our airports, and our hospitals are underfunded, and our schools are underfunded. But by God, we spend $1 trillion plus a year on weapons, and we've so inflated the national debt that we're only a few years away from a tipping point where we're just not going to be able to pay the interest on the debt.
Well, we can't now. We owe $37 trillion.
That's right.
We bring in $5 trillion into the treasury. We spend $7 trillion, and $1 trillion a year is just our interest debt.
Yeah.
On that $37 trillion.
Exactly.
I think the president, what they're planning on doing, I don't know if you know this or not, but originally they were trying to lower the treasury rates
To refinance the
to
long-term
refinance the
bonds.
debt. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then now I think they're with the Genius Act that they passed was to create the stable coins. So when someone sells Bitcoin, they have to transfer it to a stable coin before they can transfer it to their account. But with the Genius Act, the stable coin is supposed to be backed instead of by the dollar,
Right.
by the US new cryptocurrency to be able to get a place for the treasury to sell more of its bonds instead of to the public, because they have to auction every single day the new treasury.
And this is another thing too. Speaking of bonds, the Chinese are the 3rd largest holder of U.S.
Yeah, Japan's first.
And I think it's either the UK or the Netherlands that's second.
Yeah, they own I think 700 billion or close to $1 trillion. The Chinese.
We would crash each other's economies if we allowed that balance to tip. So we've got a vested interest in keeping the peace with the Chinese. You know, so why do we need to spend $1 trillion a year on defense? Why? Where does it go? God knows the Pentagon can't account for it. PricewaterhouseCoopers was brought in to do an external audit, and they gave up after 3 years. They were like, we can't find where this money went. They just gave up.
I think Doge kind of gave up as well.
Yeah.
They were supposed to find 2 trillion. I think they did 250 billion over a 10-year period.
Right. Yeah. Which is nothing. It doesn't help at all. Yeah. We're in a bad position right now.
Can you guess, based on the advancement that you saw in the CIA 20 years ago, where are they at today with DARPA, with NSA, with all the agencies?
DARPA is something most Americans have never heard of, right? DARPA is the Defense Department's, how do you even describe DARPA? It's the biggest collection of geniuses anywhere in government. These are the guys that are creating not the next generation of technology, but 3 generations from now kind of technology. If there are flying saucers and they're not little green men from outer space, DARPA made them. Seriously. We really don't know what DARPA is working on, because DARPA's work, this always struck me as very funny. DARPA's work is so classified that one DARPA scientist sitting next to another DARPA scientist has no idea what the other guy's doing. No idea what the other guy's working on. It's too highly classified. I mean, even at the CIA, we weren't cleared to know what DARPA was doing.
Not even at your position?
No. I had to get a Q clearance once because I had to go to the Department of Energy to talk about a nuclear issue. And nobody at DOE liked the fact that I had the clearance. And I ended up having the clearance just for 1 day, and then they revoked it. They're like, oh, it was just for the one meeting. You don't need to know anything else that we're doing. I'm like, okay. I signed the thing. It's like, okay, I'm not cleared anymore. But that's how DARPA is too. Like these guys won't even admit that they work at DARPA. There's a DARPA website. This is another thing that always struck me as funny. There's a DARPA website and they have pictures of scientists like, working together all in bliss. These are just generic pictures of random people that you pull off the internet. These aren't DARPA people that are in the pictures. You can't show the DARPA people. They're too highly cleared.
So going back to Vault 7, besides driving my car off a cliff and killing me, what else can they do?
Yeah.
Besides the TVs, we're assuming no cell phone is protected, not even these newer high gadget.
No, there's no such thing as a safe cell phone.
Zero.
I even wrote a book called The CIA Insider's Guide to Disappearing and Living Off the Grid. And really the bottom line of the whole book is zero technology. Literally zero technology.
Well, it's not just you with zero. It's your friend that's next to you as well. Because if he's next to you, they know your locations.
Yeah,
it's like
that's right.
everyone that you talk to or
No, I mean, you have to go out into the woods of Utah like the Unabomber and live in a cabin. That kind of life. That's the only way you're going to be.
No car, no.
No. Not unless, like I say, you drive a car from the 60s. That's the only way to keep yourself safe. No email, no internet, no cell phone, no regular phone. Nothing. Caveman times.
Yeah, nobody's doing that.
No, nobody's
it's
doing
too inconvenient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you go from that.
It's too inconvenient.
Yeah. How's your relationship with Snowden?
It's quite good.
I know you wrote him 2 letters.
Yeah, one public and one private.
Yeah.
His dad came to prison to visit me, which was very generous. And we have, as you might imagine, I mean, the national security whistleblower community is very tight. It's easier for us because we're all here. We're almost all in the Washington area. And he's stuck in Moscow. He did not defect to the Russians. He was in the transit lounge of Moscow airport when John Kerry revoked his passport and stranded him there. So this bullshit from the Obama administration that he defected to Russia. No, you put him in Russia. He was on his way to Ecuador. And if they had let him go to Ecuador, he'd be in prison in the United States right now because we overthrew the Ecuadorian government. And so they gave us Julian Assange. They would have given us Snowden even before Assange. But I stay in touch. He's a little bit tough to get in touch with because he's so security conscious that he doesn't use any of the apps. And so we've got friends who go back and forth. We have a mutual friend who was there, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. And he just kind of carries messages for everybody.
What's the outcome for him? Is he going to just be in Russia forever, or is he trying to negotiate a deal with
He tried. I told him years ago, I said, you need the best lawyers money can buy. You need my lawyers. I had the best lawyers in Washington. And that wasn't John saying it. That's the Washington Post editorial page saying it. So he actually hired my lawyers. And they went to the Justice Department to negotiate a deal. And Ed told DOJ that he was willing to plead guilty. He was willing to do 20 years if they would allow him to stand up in court and explain why he did what he did. And they said, absolutely not.
Which administration was this?
Obama.
What about now?
If he's going to get any relief, it's going to be from Donald Trump. This is one of the things that I so respect about Donald Trump, is that he is so independent of the Washington power brokers that if he thinks that something is the right thing to do, he just does it. I mean, look at all the people he's pardoned.
Yeah.
We haven't seen these kinds of pardons since Abraham Lincoln was president.
Which is one of your favorite, you collect a lot of his stuff, right?
Lincoln stuff. Oh my God, I love Abraham Lincoln so much.
You know what he has of Abraham Lincoln? Go ahead.
I collect a lot of Lincoln memorabilia, like real Lincoln memorabilia. So the first thing I bought was at an auction, Heritage Auctions in Dallas. I bought an 11.5-inch strip of wallpaper from the room that he died in. He died in the Peterson guest house across the street from Ford's Theater. And Mr. Peterson, recognizing the historical import of what had just happened in his house, tore all the wallpaper off the wall in the room that Lincoln died in and gave it out to friends. He gave the strip that I own to the governor of Indiana and then he gave it to his daughter, and it proceeded down her family until they sold it. It's all about provenance. You have to prove that it is what it says it is, right? So I bought it. And then I bought, and this is what I'm the most proud of, at Alexander Auctions in Maryland. They specialize in historical memorabilia. I bought a piece of the blood-soaked pillowcase that Lincoln died on. It's still completely saturated with blood. And the doctor that used his finger to dig the bullet out of Lincoln's brain, took the pillowcase as a souvenir. And then he cut it into swatches and gave it out. And he gave one to his daughter. And then she sold it, or she didn't sell it. A member of her family sold it to this guy, George, I forget his last name now, but he's like the world's preeminent Lincoln collector. And then it went down through his family, and then I bought it. I have 3 of Lincoln's hairs that I bought at auction from his head. People, like we do selfies with famous people now, and in an earlier generation, people asked for autographs. But back then, in the 19th century, people collected the hair of famous people. So you would write a fan letter to someone, say, and you wouldn't say, "May I have your autograph?" You'd say, "May I have some of your hair?" So when they would get a haircut, these famous people would have the barber collect their hair, and they would keep it with them to give out as souvenirs. So it was, a woman from Illinois who wrote a letter to Lincoln and asked for his hair, and he sent her the hair, and she divided it up, and I got 3 strands. I also have a piece of the gallows that the assassins were hung from, and I have a Lincoln Hamlin ballot from Ohio from the 1860 election. What else do I have?
The poop.
I didn't get the poop. So there used to be a little museum in Baltimore called the Sideshow Museum, and it was artifacts from 19th century circus sideshows, right? And my kids just hate Baltimore. They hate when I say, "Hey, let's go to Baltimore for the day." They're like, "No, not Baltimore. It's like the American shithole." I hate to say, but it is. If you've seen The Wire, that's Baltimore. So I always insist, because I actually like Baltimore. It has terrific restaurants. Anyway, so we go to the Sideshow Museum, and they've got like this 9-foot tall woman, the Amazon woman, right? You could tell it's paper mache or whatever. And they had a jackalope. You know what a jackalope is. And it's all silly stuff. But then there's this shadow box about that big, and it's hanging on the wall, and it has a dried out turd in it with like a grain of rice sticking out of it. And it says on the wall, "This was the last turd that Abraham Lincoln ever pooped." They said that when he arrived at Ford's Theater, he excused himself momentarily to drop a deuce in the chamber pot, which I never remembered reading. But anyway, I'm willing to go with it. And then after he was shot, one of the ushers had the presence of mind to go in and take the turd as a souvenir. And he dried out the turd, and this is the turd. Abraham Lincoln's last turd. So about 6 months later, I read in the Washington Post, this little Sideshow Museum is going out of business. And they're going to sell all their holdings on eBay. And I said to my wife, "I'm buying that turd." She goes, "Oh, no, you're not." I said, "Oh, yes, I am." So I took the day off work so I could be there like live as the turd is being auctioned. So it finally comes up, and the bidding, I bid like 500 or 600 or whatever. It just goes up from that. It went for thousands. More time passes. There's an article in the Post saying, "A few months ago, we did this article about this museum, and there was this turd that was purported to be Lincoln's. The guy went to eBay, he bought the turd. He sent it for a DNA test. And they determined that the turd contained bits of Necco wafer. You know what Necco wafer is? It's this awful, awful candy that's made in Pittsburgh. But they didn't start making the Necco wafer until like 1868 or 1872 or whatever. And Lincoln was killed in 1865. So this is just like some guy's turd. that's been on display for 150 years. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God I didn't buy that turd. She would have never let me live it down. But I have other cool Lincoln stuff.
That's really cool.
You know, I'll tell you another one of the big Lincoln collectors in America is Conan O'Brien. He's at every one of the auctions, just outbidding everybody. And I saw him in a documentary the other day, a Lincoln Memorabilia documentary. And he said that the first big ticket item that he bought was a pardon. Lincoln used to stay awake at night by candlelight, pardoning deserters, because he said no man should lose his life because he was a coward. So if you just run away because you're afraid of fighting, you got a pardon. And so these pardons are out there, and they generally go for like between $12,000 and $20,000. And so he bought a pardon, and it's framed, and it's in his bedroom. And the interviewer said, "Why do you have it hanging in your bedroom?" And he said, "Because I so love and respect Abraham Lincoln. I want it to be the first thing I see every morning when I wake up." I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Which agency has the, like, what skill set do each agencies have? Like Mossad or CIA? Like, who has the best?
You know,
Where are their strengths
it
at?
really varies. There are a lot of very bad intelligence services out there. The Israelis are the best, just because they have to be the best, right? Because they have nowhere to go. The Mediterranean, that's it. It's either win or die. So they really are the best. The Russians are good. The Chinese are good. The Cubans are amazing.
Good in what sense?
Good
Like,
in
where's
that
their skill set at?
they're very, very accomplished in counterintelligence. I wish there's stuff I'd love to tell you that I'm not allowed to, but they're very, very good at counterintelligence. And then there are some, like the British. I remember one boss that I had. I was getting ready to go to London because I was doing a joint operation with MI6. And he said, "Man, I wish I was young again. I'd love to do what you're doing right now." I said, I love it so much. I love London. I spent the happiest year of my life in London. And I said, the Brits are just such good guys. And after the op is over, we always go out and drink until 2 o'clock in the morning and tell lies to each other and stuff like that. So he said, "You know, the thing I've always admired about the Brits is that if they want to do something, by God, they just go out and do it. For us, we have to write a memo, and then it's 6 layers of bureaucracy that have to approve the memo, and then it goes to the general counsel, then it goes to the oversight committee, and then by the time you get approval, the thing's passed, and it's been overtaken by events." He said, "Man, the Brits want to go out and do something, they just say, 'I'm going to go out and do this,' and they go out and do it." But I said that to the Brits one time, and they said, "Oh, that's funny, because we all say, we wish we had the CIA's money." I said, "That's true. Nobody can touch the money that we have." Yeah. It's incredible how much money we had.
The countries that you visited under an alias, if they have your pictures and your fingerprints,
See,
you can never go back now.
No,
'Cause
see,
a separate identity is going to pop up.
yeah, I mean, I never had to be fingerprinted or anything, but yeah, I left in 2004. Today, I don't have any idea how these guys get the job done. I genuinely don't understand how they're able to cross borders, especially in alias on fake passports, because AI is going to detect it.
That's true.
So what do they do? How do they work? I have no idea.
Your makeup artist.
No, it's still your thumbprints, your
Right.
eyes.
Right. And in places like, Australia, I mean, we don't spy on the Australians because they're Five Eyes, but they take fingerprints in Australia.
How are Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Five Eyes, but like Germany, France, these allies are not part of the Five Eyes?
No. I mean, the truth is they're our closest English-speaking allies.
Oh, okay.
That's really what it comes down to. Yeah. Well, we're not even that close to the Canadians and New Zealanders, but they speak English and they're part of the Commonwealth. So, yeah. I've often wondered that too, because we're really, really close with some countries like Norway. I remember the deputy director joking that Norway was going to become the 51st state if there ever was a 51st state. Wouldn't be Puerto Rico. It's going to be Norway.
Is there any more Pakistan stories that we want to get into?
The whole Abu Zubaydah story is like the biggest story of my career.
but he's talked about it before.
Millions and millions of times.
Do you have a different version of it or some other things that you
No,
didn't?
it's all pretty straightforward.
Do you have a picture of bin Laden?
No, I have lots of pictures of Abu Zubaydah and his buddies after we shot him.
He's so young.
He was 27. And I said to him,
What
I
is
said-
it? Are you in a car?
we threw him in the back of a pickup truck to
Oh,
take
wow.
him to the hospital. The fucking Pakistanis. I said,
this
do
guy's
not
suspect.
shoot him. And the guy's like, it's like, you fucking retard. Did I not say, do not shoot him?
I think he interpreted it as shoot.
Oh, these guys, these Pakistanis. Oh my God.
So the mask comes off. And then after Pakistan, where do you end up going?
Well, the biggest success that I had in Pakistan was the Abu Zubaydah capture, which I've talked about a million times. But it was so important in my career. I got a medal, I got a promotion, I got my own handshake with the director. And so I went back to headquarters as the executive assistant to the CIA's deputy director for operations. Very big deal because the executive assistants have access to literally everything that the CIA is doing all around the world. You're read into more compartments than you can shake a stick at. And I went back on my first day and I said to the deputy director, I said, so now what do we do? And he says, actually, I can't tell you. You have to go up to security. They have a bunch of secrecy agreements for you to sign. Sign those, come back down and we'll talk. So I said, okay. So I went up to security. They were waiting for me. They had 6 secrecy documents, secrecy agreements laid out on the table. And so I signed each one. And I said to the guy, who I knew, I had known for a long time, I said, so what's up? And he goes like this. Well, next year, we're going to invade Iraq. We're going to overthrow Saddam Hussein. We're going to open the world's largest Air Force base. And we're going to move all of our air assets out of Saudi Arabia into Iraq to deprive Osama bin Laden of the ability to say that we are polluting the land of the 2 holy mosques. And I was dumbfounded. And I said, are you kidding me? We haven't caught bin Laden yet. And I just thought, perhaps naively, that post 9/11, everybody had to drop everything that they were doing and find Osama bin Laden. And he said, buddy, the battle lines have already been drawn and the decision has already been made. And he said, the pro-invasion side is OVP, the Office of the Vice President, OSD, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Council. And the anti-war faction is the CIA, the State Department, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said, but the decision's been made and we have to fall into line. I was just flabbergasted. So I go back downstairs and the director said, or the deputy director said, so you're read in. And I said, are they out of their minds? And he said, yeah, they're out of their minds, but we have a job to do. And so that day we began to plan the invasion of Iraq.
What year was this?
2002. It was a full year before we invaded Iraq that we did the planning.
That's a lot of planning.
Yeah, it's a lot of planning, a lot of finger pointing.